Welcome back to Thimbleberry U. I am John Janke, joined again by Amy Walls from Thimbleberry Financial. Amy, good to be with you as always.
Jag, I love days where I get to talk to you.
I appreciate that. The feeling is more than mutual. And we're talking about something that a lot of people are kind of getting into lately and loving, I'm sure. And it's this idea of a sabbatical, creating your own sabbatical. And I know you work with a lot of clients in the tech sector. This is actually pretty big in that realm, right?
It has definitely become bigger. I don't hear a lot of folks talking about it ahead of time.
Okay.
But we've had a few clients come in, being new clients, and are like, gosh, I would love to make this happen for X, Y, and Z. Some companies provide it, so I think it's on people's minds, but it doesn't always feel possible.
I know I have a friend that worked for a very, very large social media company whose name I won't mention, but it's one that we all know. And they did have that built-in sabbatical. Oh, you've hit 5 years. Take your sabbatical for, I don't know, I'm not sure it was a month or whatever it was, but kind of having that like mental recharge and reset, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's a lot of how our clients in tech think about it that bring this up is they know they work really hard and they're like, I burn myself out. You know, those sabbaticals are a way to reset and feel better and be able to give my all again.
Perfect. What goes into the creation process of a sabbatical? What goes into the consideration of taking one? What do you have to think about?
So first, I think it's vision, obviously, to have the idea or know that maybe it could be a possibility. So in looking at that, I think vision includes the frequency. Like one big tech firm does it every 7 years. Mm-hmm. Some, it might be one time. So I know somebody that is in tech that due to an pending IPO and what they have in a tender offer was able to retire early pending the IPO. And it may or may not be a permanent retirement, but in that they're calling it a sabbatical.
Okay.
For the time being. It just may become a permanent retirement.
But for now, it's a sabbatical. Got it. Okay.
Yes. In that vision, it's important to think about what would you be doing? Is that traveling? Is that expensive traveling? Is it camping with some hiking? Is it downtime to do art projects and just use your creative mind away from what your day-to-day job is like?
Give that left brain a break and go back to the right brain for a little while.
Exactly. Then it's the situation. So first is, well, one, we're talking about creating this, so it probably doesn't exist with your current employer. But could you create this with your current employer?
Okay.
Or do you need to do it on your own? So we have several clients that either on their own had this idea or we brought it up because of other things they were saying in their conversation. And their plan, given that they're in tech and they plan to switch jobs every 3 to 5 years, plan to have sabbaticals for maybe 6 months in between job changes.
There's stuff you have to consider when you do that though, right?
Absolutely. So considerations are things like covering health insurance during that time.
Sure.
What about other benefits? And it's interesting because some of the folks that are doing this, while quite young, have had some serious health scares.
Wow.
And so insurance is a very big deal, as well as retaining other benefits.
And the financial impact goes beyond just the health insurance, right?
Absolutely. So one question I think that's important to ask is, would I be willing to make X amount less annually to have the option of a sabbatical? So would I be willing to make $5,000 a year less to have a sabbatical every 5 years?
Right.
Or $10,000 a year less? If the answer is no, then creating this is not really important to you.
Got it.
You're not willing to trade one thing for this. But if the answer is yes, then those dollars are what I'll call emotionally available for reallocation.
I see. I like that phrasing. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Other financial impacts, if we're talking, shorter term, which I'm going to imagine this is, it means increasing savings and reducing other expenses or saving differently than you were. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you're doing that, what resources are needed to fund the sabbatical? What's the cost of what you want to do? And it's not just the cost of what you want to do, but it's your other living expenses during that time. So you have to look at what you're currently spending. And if it's 6 months, okay, so basically it's going to be half of your annual expenses. Plus, if there's travel, then what are those costs during that time? So you have to have enough set aside to cover all of that.
Got it.
What's the right place to save these dollars? So For some of our clients, they're actively saving this money into cash. They've just got it set there. This is my sabbatical fund. For others, they're like, yeah, this is short to medium term, but I don't actually know if when I change jobs, I'll do this. And they found that when they changed jobs, they said, oh, actually, I feel like a couple weeks is okay now.
Okay.
I don't need to take the 6 months.
Got it.
But it gives them the peace of mind of knowing they can. And so in that case, they actually are keeping that money in a brokerage account, invested, moderately, for example.
Makes sense.
And if it's longer term that someone's planning for this, then this could be something that because I want sabbaticals every so often, I am willing to delay retirement.
That makes sense when you do the math. Okay.
And is that worth it? And that's a completely personal choice.
Every situation is different for sure.
Absolutely.
And I'd imagine part of this equation when you're planning this out, Amy, is looking at worst case scenarios and what could go wrong, right?
Oh, absolutely. Let's imagine that you were one of the folks that planned and created their own sabbatical and was doing it in between jobs and decided to do so in February of 2020 or March of 2020.
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden, nobody was hiring. Or maybe you did it 5 months before that, right? Really not having an idea that the pandemic was about to hit. So it's looking kind of at worst case to say, if that were to happen and no one was hiring when you started your job search, how would you be okay? What steps do you have to take to be okay?
That in case of emergency, break glass. A lot of these things you're talking about, Amy, goes right in line with some of the planning that you do at Thimbleberry Financial. It sounds like as a financial advisor, you and your team are going to help clients figure out the financial impact. What kind of things do you do to help that happen?
So first step, I think, is figuring out what the goal is, right? And I mentioned that we've suggested this to some clients, and that's really happened when a client's talking about being burnt out. They're talking about that they have, and we have the relationship to know that they have certain health issues that would be better served without extreme stress. But they love what they do. And so just in knowing them, it's talking to them about their goals and giving options that we might see other people do that we think might resonate. Once we've kind of defined, and it's not defining in a strict term, but a loose picture of what they might enjoy, then it's figuring out, is that possible? What scale is it possible on? So they can make the decision on if they'd actually like to go down the path of planning for that. And then, like you just had asked, it's looking at the worst case. Well, what if some things don't go right and you do this? What would be the consequences? So that you can actually say, yep, I'm going to put my stamp of approval as the client on moving forward with this, or, oh no, I'm going to get rid of that idea for now. Or I'm just going to keep it on the back burner and not do anything and maybe revisit in a while.
This goes back to a common theme we've seen in 60 plus episodes of this podcast. Not only is everybody's individual situation different, you need to talk to somebody who can look at the facts objectively as opposed to the emotion that you're going to have around your own money and your own future. So that's why it's so great to talk to the team. Last question before I ask you for your contact info, Amy. Someone could have a 6-month gap in their employment history if they do this sabbatical. Is that a red flag for potential employers? How do you navigate that question in a job interview? What have you been doing the last 6 months? Oh, I've been on the beach.
It's funny you bring that up because I was talking to my husband who works in tech about this concept, and just that we had several clients, and he had this shocked look on his face and said, how did you never share this idea with me before? And this ultimately became one of his questions. And I think on the surface, it seems like it could be problematic. But I do think there's an easy way to explain it. And that explanation could sound something like, I've worked hard for the companies I work for, and I plan to continue to do so. Like, that's not changing about who I am. Some tech firms offer sabbaticals, but I prefer smaller firms that haven't grown to a place where that's a benefit that they can offer employees. And personally, I see the benefits of pausing and regrouping in my life periodically, refreshing. And so I've planned for self-created sabbaticals in between my jobs. I think saying that to a prospective employer says so many positive things.
Yeah.
Most of all, it says I'm responsible enough to find and create solutions for situations that I put myself in. What employer doesn't love that?
That's a great way to put it. That is an absolutely great way to put it. And I think most people, especially in the tech sector, but in any sector, would appreciate that as an answer. Amy, if somebody wants to come talk to you about sabbaticals or planning anything for their financial future, best ways to find you and the team at Thimbleberry?
They can find us online at thimbleberryfinancial.com or give us a call at 503-610-6510.
You are the one to talk to when it comes to any of these types of questions. Always a pleasure, Amy. We'll talk again in a couple weeks.
Yes, sounds good, Jag.
Registered representative, securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisor representative, Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Thimbleberry Financial are not affiliated.